Hello, Eppisford. It is great to be back here with you. I heard that you are currently working on a SIOP and culturally responsive, culturally sustaining pedagogy. I'm so honored that Lynette and her team have asked me to contribute to your work. Let me share just a few ideas here. So let's look at the first one that they asked me to answer. How does SIOP enhance a culturally responsive and inclusive environment? When we look at SIOP, there are multiple components, and each of the component has so many features. Let me share with you building background as a focus. The focus of the feature is concepts explicitly linked to students' backgrounds. Let me give you an example here. Let's say you are starting with a unit-specific content such as the French Revolution. Instead of starting there, let's bring students' background into the concept by moving back up to universal concepts such as violence, or in revolutions is about struggle for power. So you ask them something that's universal. You ask them, what happens when you disagree with your family's rules? That makes sense because that's what revolutions are about. People, citizens disagreeing with the rules created by their government, right? Or the king or the queen or whatever. And so there's a disconnect. We first start with something that's connected to them. They all disagree with their family at times. I know I did. And so we bring that to them. We might continue by asking, is there a process for changing the rules when you disagree with these? Oh, I'm sure they wouldn't say violence, but that's what happens in revolutions. So we think about a unit-specific concept like French Revolution. We go all the way back up to give students opportunities to engage with that concept from their background. We don't ask them, have you ever, because they probably haven't, and the diversity is so huge that we don't ask them that. Instead, we say, here's a concept. How would you play with that concept? Or how have you seen that concept? Or how would you engage with that concept? So let me share with you, this is your turn to practice. Think about a unit-specific content. You can think about it now. And think about the universal concepts that are connected to that. You might invite students to share their reactions to this universal concept, such as starting with, what happens when, or how would you respond when? Yeah. Let's move to the second question that I was asked to answer. How does SIOP encourage educators to consider students' cultural assets and linguistic diversity during lesson planning? When we return back to the SIOP model, we look at two together, interaction and practice and application. For me, I love interaction, in particular when students are interacting. SIOP says we can give them ample opportunities for students to clarify and discuss key concepts in one of their multiple languages that they have. When they're using their languages, let's have them engage in activities that provide students with the ability to apply content and language together. So basically, this is what it would look like. Students have activities where they're interacting together using their multiple languages to understand and process content, but also practice language. So let me give you an example here. This is an actual lesson from week 4 in unit 1 when my students were learning about overcoming difficulties, adversities. So I was trying to teach students about the concept of the word although. I'm trying to teach them complex sentence starters or complex sentence structures. Students had to watch this video with me. I guided them through the video about the Chinese disabled people and how they overcame their adversities to perform internationally. And so I thought, I want to teach complex sentence structure. So the word although would really work with this video. I started off with saying, I'm going to give you the word although. Here's the word although in Khmer in Korean. Can you tell me the word Khmer in Korean? Does this make sense looking at my concepts, looking at my example? And then I gave them an opportunity to do that as well. So now that they know the word although, the word although already exists in their languages, they looked at mine to say, oh, Mr. Tan is showing a contrast. That's what although means, similar to the word although in my language. Then students are going to go apply it and practice it. let me give you another example. My students were looking at the pros and cons, the disadvantages and advantages of social media. And after reading about the disadvantages, I had them rank, again, do you see the translanguaging here? Rank the disadvantages of social media from least harmful to most disadvantageous. I had students work together in their same language groupings. So Vin and Vici are Khmer, and they speak Khmer together really well. So I said, now that you read an English article, let's process the ideas in Khmer, which is fine, and then produce your ranking for me in English, because I don't understand Khmer as well as you do. So speaking Khmer about the article that was in English, but please rank the disadvantages of social media using your language, but please put it in English so we can all see. Okay? So this is, again, 5, using L1 or multiple language. And number 6 for SIOP, which is about having opportunities for students to practice applying the content and language at the same time, because they're learning the word disadvantage, and they're learning the word least harmful, most disadvantageous, and they're learning all these other content words as well. Let me give you one more example from art. Here, my art teacher wanted students to think about a sculpture that they're going to create in the future. And they have to talk about each of these things. What ideas might they use for a pattern, for line, for repetition, for contrast, for their sculpture? So my students did this. Well, our students did this. They created, each of them had a little sketchbook. And then one student in particular thought about a bird sculpture. And for the symbols, she started to think about in Khmer. She was having problems finding the word, and said, just write it in Khmer first and then add the English. And that's what she did here. So we're having students apply the instructions, the concept of thinking about elements of art using students' languages here, right? They produce in English, but they're processing the content. They're thinking about the content. They're applying the content and language in a different language, finally in English as well. To conclude, when I think about making content comprehensible or SIOP, I think about what teachers can do. When I think about culturally responsive instruction or sustaining pedagogy, it's thinking about what can students, their families, and the community can do. And together, we can do so much. Wishing you the best. I'm hopeful to see you in the future. I love my Abbotsford people.